Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Two Way Tonight. I'm Mark Halperin, and we are monitoring the situation, as we say, with our left coast partners, our friends at Monitoring the Situation, our pop-up simulcast with them. We're glad to be part of their situation tonight as we monitor the following stories: the war with Iran, some developments there, the aftermath of the attempted shooting at the Washington Hilton over the weekend, including the arraignment of the suspect, and some comments from both the acting attorney general and the White House press secretary, not just about the shooter, but about the question of rhetoric in America, one of the favorite and least favorite topics of people involved with this program. But we'll talk about those war of words, about the war of words. And the First Lady and the President of the United States both called for Jimmy Kimmel to be fired. We'll talk about that. And that's another war of words. It's pretty interesting. Hakeem Jeffries went off on the White House today in a way that will shock and not surprise you. And the king and queen are here. There's some other stories, but those are the main things we're monitoring, and we'd love for you to participate. We've got a bunch of great guests to talk through all these stories. But if you're here on the two-way platform and you'd like to be involved in the conversation, talk about ballroom security or the rhetoric in America or Jimmy Kimmel, please raise your hand. If you're watching on X or YouTube, don't raise your hand. Don't put smack in the chat. Do evince a feeling of peace, love, and understanding. Do extend the presumption of grace to all. This is a different kind of program here. If we talk about Jimmy Kimmel, doesn't mean we love him, doesn't mean we hate him, just means he's in the news. And the First Lady put on Twitter today something, I have to say, unlike anything she's ever tweeted, but it was quite something. And I say again, if a late night comedian talked about Michelle Obama as a widow, the press reaction would be quite different. This story is going to get some coverage in some places, but probably not enough. In any event, all of that in just a moment. Our guests in just a moment. We're going to talk about the arraignment first. Let me do a quick word from a sponsor just before we bring our guests in, and then we'll get going. Our first sponsor of the day, of the night, of the evening, our friends at Cozy Earth. Cozy Earth will give you 20% off everything on the site. Good for Mother's Day shopping if you haven't gotten that done yet, but buy something for yourself. It's great stuff. Slippers and bathrobes and Cozy Earth bubble cuddle blanket, all available to you, along with everything else on the site for a whopping 20% off by using the promo code two-way. You can buy whatever you want on there, but buy yourself some Mother's Day presents. Moms love stuff from Cozy Earth, I promise. And if they don't like it, you can return it. And again, I know that's a little awkward to say, Mom, here's a lovely robe I picked out for you. If you don't like it, I can send it back, but you can. No questions asked, folks at Cozy Earth, because they're confident that your mom will love it. The robes come in different sizes. They all have spacious pockets, adjustable ties, and what they call cozy silhouettes. I could be a pitchman for Cozy Earth for 40 years, ladies and gentlemen. I'll never know what a cozy silhouette is on a robe, but it sounds like something you want. So go to CozyEarth.com right now, because home starts with mom. Use the promo code two-way for 20% off. And in the post-purchase survey, say you heard about this right here on Two-Way Tonight. A.T. Smith is amongst our guests tonight as we monitor the situation involving the Washington Hilton. Mr. Smith is security consultant, former Secret Service deputy director, and he joins us now from a very backlit shot. Mr. Smith, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I apologize for that.
No, it's all good. I'm just kidding. We're happy to have you here and have your voice here. When did you work with the service, sir?
29 years. I was there from 1986 to 2015, and was able to complete a lot of different things there, and was deputy director when I left.
Yeah. Were you ever in the presidential detail?
I was there at the White House from 94 to 2000.
Okay. And so you've been to the Washington Hilton, haven't you?
I have, yes.
Yeah.
I've done it.
Yeah. So my first question, I talked about it on the show this morning, is if you were deputy director and they said, we don't think we need to control the perimeter. We think anybody can walk right into the hotel. They can even walk right up to within 25 feet of the stairwell leading to the ballroom without being magged. Would you have said that's fine, or would you have said maybe we should extend the perimeter?
Well, I think they did extend the perimeter. I think you have to think of an advance like this, and let me just say too, the Washington Hilton is a very complicated place to do a protective advance.
Yes, sir.
Foremost. Secondly, the Secret Service did react in the way that they train every day to react, and that was obviously to evacuate not only the president First Lady, Vice President, but others that were there. And the bottom line is everyone was removed safely and they were able to subdue this assailant without anybody getting hurt. Having said that, that is sort of that inner perimeter. And, you know, in my view, someone shouldn't be able to get that close, obviously, to your point, to either the event site, the magnetometers, and so forth. So they will do a review and determine, you know, what needs to be corrected and what should be addressed. And again, if you talk about security of that type, it's problematic because of the way the hotel's situated, but you're also trying to secure a location within a public venue. The Hilton is open to the public. It has guests who come and go and have rooms there that have nothing to do with the event. So if you think of the security plan, it's generally 3 concentric rings of security. That innermost ring, which is what you saw react with the president and vice president and so forth. And then that middle perimeter area that usually will touch or encompass the magnetometer checkpoints. And then that last ring, the outer perimeter, is sort of the public venue where, again, the hotel, the public streets, and things that normally the police will cover. So there was that security plan in place, and there was security, and again, it may be a uniform presence, counter surveillance, or what have you beyond that magnetometer checkpoint. But the question that has to be asked is, how did the individual not only get to the hotel and do what he did traveling from California with those firearms, but then make his way down, apparently from a room, and able to sort of run through or bogart that magnetometer checkpoint and make it almost to the ballroom door, one flight up. So again, the Secret Service did their job, but as any agency goes, they're going to internally look at this, and no agency is more critical of itself than the Secret Service. So I'm confident they'll take a hard look at that and make determinations about possibly changing posting or how they're going to address this in the future. And a lot of talk out there about NSSEs and things of that nature.
Hans Nichols, thank you, sir. Hans Nichols is here of Axios, and I'm going to turn you over to him in just a minute. But I just want to follow up. And again, I don't want to be misunderstood. I respect the service and you and your former colleagues, the people there now. And I think from the time the guy ran through the security portion, the service did an incredible job of getting the president out, the vice president out, the other dignitaries, of keeping people calm in the room, of communicating. And I don't blame them. They're not in charge of trains. So they're not at fault for the guy taking the train. But here are the 3 things that I don't understand. The main 3 things I understand. First of all, the security perimeter. I'll just say, if you had a packet that had Hilton on it, didn't even have to have a room at that hotel. If you had a packet, a key packet, cardboard packet that said Hilton on it, you could walk right where that guy walked with any weapon in the world, with no security, no searches, no mags. Mags, by the way, I used it so often this morning. The mags are the magnetometers. They're the things, the screening things you go through for metal, like at airports. So that you could walk right up to that security with no credentials, no ticket, no ID, no search. Whose decision would it be? Maybe you know in this particular case, but in general, whose decision would it be that the first time someone who had a packet that said Hilton on it could get there to security would be within feet of where the ballroom door? Whose decision is that? The Secret Service sets the perimeter, the hotel, the White House Chief of Staff? Who sets that?
Well, it's a combination. It's working hand in hand with either the host committee in this case, or the host being the Correspondents Association. Obviously, you're going to involve the hotel security. And the agents were there, obviously, to do the advance and made a decision about where the checkpoints would be. To your point, and to what I said earlier, you've got, the issue here of a public venue, a hotel where people are coming and going and there's activity. And so the Secret Service clearly made the decision about where that middle perimeter and those.
But would that decision be based on cost or human power? Why not have the perimeter be the hotel property? Why not set the mags up at the edge of the hotel property? Is that just a matter of cost?
It's not a matter of cost. It's just a matter of whether they are going to have the manpower to be able to do that, or whether or not the hotel is going to object to that. So again, a lot of this is a little bit of a give and take in terms of trying to secure a place within a public venue like that. So, it's sort of a negotiation on a certain level, but at the same time, they arrive at what the decision they believe is adequate. And in this case, obviously, this individual, as I said earlier, timed this thing just right so he could pick up speed and run right through that checkpoint. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, he was stopped, and fortunately, one of the officers was shot, and his bulletproof vest prevented anything in the way of an injury. So,
yes, sir, and very fortunate. Two more questions for me.
Sure.
I ask you, would these be best practices? The tickets, I have mine. I meant to bring it up here to show. The ticket does not have a QR code on it. It's just a piece of cardboard. Would best practice be to have a QR code on a ticket?
That and probably a photo ID.
And if that was what I was going to ask you, neither was required, ladies and gentlemen. It's harder to get into Yankee Stadium than it was to get into this dinner. Okay,
Yeah.
No ID was required of me. Now I was wearing a tux, but I know the Iranians have tuxes too. Hans Nichols of Axios, questions for Mr. Smith. And Mr. Smith, I couldn't be more grateful to you for being here and sharing your expertise. Hans.
Yeah. Thanks for both for being here. So I've done a lot of foreign trips with the president, and it seems like various presidents, and it seems like when you go into hotels there, the perimeter is always set up outside the actual building, right? You get magged before you even go to reception. I'm not like I'm doing this from memory, but like we didn't get magged until we went downstairs, right, Mark? At the Hilton.
Within feet of the ballroom. And the reason it matters is not just to search people, but that guy, by running through the mag, with the mag being so close to the entrance to the ballroom, he was right there. If they hadn't stopped him, or been 5 guys with bazookas running through there all at once, they may not have been able to stop him. But yes, Hans, you're right. Again, I know you said it's a matter of manpower. What would it take to do the perimeter of the Hilton? Again, folks, for those of you who haven't been there, it's on a hill. So there's one entrance on Connecticut Avenue, and then an entrance on T Street, the entrance where President Reagan was shot. And the streets were blocked. Cars were not coming in. So all they'd have to do, as far as I could tell, is move the mags from the hotel up the top of the hill.
You make a very good point. I mean, that is something that I'm sure they'll take a look at. It's like proximity and sort of the perimeter, and maybe they took into consideration what I said about the hotel, but at the same time, the farther out you can extend that perimeter, to your point, the better. I mean, you're going to stop a threat farther. That's better than stopping it.
Yeah. Okay. Tim Rice is here, Bureau Chief of the Daily Wire. Tim, question for Mr. Smith, if you have one.
Yeah, mine is just, and I really don't know. And I've heard a couple of people speculating about it. It was the amount of cabinet members and congressional leadership in and out of the line of succession. Was it a higher proportion of that this year? Sort of seems like maybe. Like, do most presidents have their Secretary of State and whatnot all come, or was this more? Was there higher participation from the people in power because this was Trump's big year back?
You've been to more of these than I have, but it seemed higher.
In the Clinton and Obama years, top cabinet members went.
Okay.
I can't swear that Defense, State, Treasury, and Justice were all there. Those are the so-called
VP?
Big Four. And
was
the Vice
VP?
President. No, the Vice President, in my memory, typically did not come. So It's at least slightly bigger in that sense. But some of the criticism is unfair. They didn't take the president right away because they were making sure that everything was ready for him to be safe to get to the car. So that's ridiculous. But they did get everybody out pretty quickly. But obviously, if the worst had happened, I think that's why people are focused on this. Let me run through a little bit of news. Here is the acting attorney general, Mr. Blanche, describing the charges against the alleged shooter. Number 2, please.
Make this clear. This man was a floor above the ballroom with hundreds of federal agents between him and the President of the United States. The Department of Justice approaches incidents like this with urgency and clarity of purpose. Violence has no place in civic life. It cannot and will not be used to disrupt democratic institutions or intimidate those who serve them, and it certainly cannot continue to be used against the President of the United States. We are investigating this matter fully. We will apply the law fairly, and we will ensure that accountability is swift and certain. But we also should recognize what did not happen. Law enforcement did not fail. They did exactly what they are trained to do. This was not an accident. It was the result, as we know now, of preparation. But the men and women who protected us that night were trained, professional, and had an enduring commitment to the rule of law. Today, the Department of Justice filed 3 federal charges in United States District Court against Cole Thomas Allen. The first count is attempted assassination of the President of the United States. This count is punishable by up to life in prison. The second count is interstate transportation of a firearm to commit a felony. This is punishable by up to 10 years in prison. And the third count is discharge of a firearm during a crime of violence, which is punishable by a mandatory minimum term of imprisonment of 10 years, a maximum of life, and the 10 years is consecutive to any other sentence imposed.
Okay. I'll show you one other thing. This is the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia showing the weapons that Cole allegedly had on him. Number 3, please.
Now, as indicated, these are the weapons that the defendant had on his person. You can see that's a 12-gauge pump-action Mossberg shotgun. It's a .38 semi-automatic. He had at least 3 knives and all kinds of paraphernalia. So any suggestion that he wasn't there to do harm is absurd. We will prove when he purchased these guns. They were purchased in California. Why is that relevant? It is relevant because he crossed interstate lines with those.
Mr. Smith, here's my question for you. We don't know exactly how he got the guns in the hotel, how he came down from his room, whether he brought the guns with him. In a situation like this, would there be a Secret Service command center where there'd be video monitors in the elevators, et cetera? In other words, how I know I agree with you. I agree with the acting attorney general. Your colleague stopped him. He didn't get into the ballroom, but he did get downstairs with a gun. So how is that supposed to be monitored?
Well, I don't think that, to your point, there is a camera or any system like that would capture that. Then we'll go back, I'm sure, and look at the hotel security footage, which I think they have. My guess is that model of a Mossberg shotgun can be easily broken down and probably fit into a duffel bag.
So maybe he went to the bathroom right outside where he ran through and assembled it there, maybe.
Either that, or I've heard reports that maybe he somehow made his way down, in the stairwell, like the exit stairwell to that floor, but I'm not sure about that either. But assembled it in a bathroom.
I'm gonna ask you one hypothetical. Had this been 5 guys with AK-47s, and they followed whatever path he followed to get there, and 5 guys had simultaneously rushed the mag at the speed that guy ran, would that have presented a significantly graver threat than what one guy, or not necessarily?
No, I think so. Yes, I think so. I think if there had been that many and that kind of firepower, you might very well have had a very different outcome. And if that Secret Service officer hadn't been able to stop him at that door and he got into the ballroom with a 12-gauge shotgun, it could have very easily been quite different.
Yeah. So I'll just say, ladies and gentlemen, it may be harder for 5, but let's say 7 guys to do what that one guy did. And remember, that guy did that with no friction, no search, no ID, except as a hotel guest. If one guy had gone to the hotel lobby, which is again 1 floor above where this guy ran through the mags, 2 floors above the ballroom, filled with civilians gawking, and people who don't have tickets at the bar. If one guy had gone there with an AK-47 and one guy had gone to the level where this guy went, or let's say, one guy goes to the bar lobby, another guy with an AK-47 goes to the ballroom level, but not try to get through the mag, where there are people milling around waiting to go in, and 5 guys had done what this guy did, and the two guys on the lobby level and the ballroom level started shooting first. The service would have run to those two, not everybody, but some people would have run to those two places because they'd be going to figure out why there's AK-47 gunfire and people being mowed down. And mowing people down on those two levels is effortless. They're packed in. There's hundreds of people just standing around. Okay, so then five guys go to the medium, the intermediate level, and they rush through with AK-47s. And the reason I'm focused on this hypothetical is this isn't that big a hypothetical. That would have been nearly as easy to do as this one guy, who as best we can tell is an amateur. This is not, some Rambo. If seven guys had done that, it would have been a carnage. It would have been a carnage.
Your example, Mark, is the three guys in the Bataclan in Paris.
Yeah, right.
Where
exactly
90 died.
Exactly right.
And I was in Paris for that. I mean, I wasn't right at the moment, obviously wasn't, but we were like, that was always like that, but they were trained, remember? They had some ISIS training, I believe, but that was always the numbers were always astounding to me, that 90 killed. Now, but now there wasn't the component of there weren't good guys with guns in the Bataclan. They were just bad guys. So that's the crucial difference there, but 3 to 90, and they took their time going through.
Yeah.
But
again, this is a hotel packed with people on 3 floors and not a lot of space. In other words, not easy to race away. You can go to a bathroom, but where those people are on the lobby level with an AK-47, it's horrific to think about. And I say again, it's all in the planning of it. You cannot let that many people unswept by service and no IDs into the hotel with the president, the vice president, everybody there. It just defies everything. A president whose two people have already tried to kill at a time we're at a war with a country that allegedly has sleeper cells in the United States. It does not make any sense. All right, Mr. Smith, I hope you can stay with us because we may have questions for you, but we're going to switch and talk about Iran if that's okay.
Okay, I may have to drop off at a moment with that.
If you do. I'm very grateful to you. We hope you'll come back as we keep talking about it, but very grateful to you for your expertise. Today, the Iranians made an offer. The offer is and there were reports of this yesterday, that the strait would be completely open. The U.S. would stop its blockade. The Iranians would stop blocking ships, and then they'd move to talk about nuclear. Okay. When I first heard this yesterday, I thought, well, there's just no way the United States will go for this plan. Not in a million years. But let's see. Here's the Secretary of State. Hadn't done very many interviews or public statements during the war, but today he did an interview with Fox News Channel. And here's what he said about the concept of opening the strait as part of the conversations. Well, first, 16, please. Here's the Wall Street Journal headline about this offer. Iran wants deal to lift Hormuz blockade that postpones nuclear talks. Foreign minister is in Russia to meet with Putin. President Trump said peace talks could happen by phone. Here's Marco Rubio talking about this offer. 17, please.
Saturday, President Trump canceled the planned talks in Islamabad, Pakistan, encouraging the delegation not to go. And on Saturday, the president canceled the talks in Islamabad, Pakistan, keeping Special Envoys Kushner and Witkoff here in the United States. He said just 10 minutes later, the Iranians made a new offer on paper, and it was better.
If what they mean by opening the straits is, yes, the straits are opened as long as you coordinate with Iran, get our permission, or we'll blow you up, and you pay us, that's not opening the straits. Those are international waterways. They cannot normalize, nor can we tolerate them trying to normalize a system in which the Iranians decide who gets to use an international waterway and how much you have to pay them to use it.
Brent crude was up about $3 today. The Dow was down, but the other U.S. markets were up. And all of this implicates the question of who has the leverage now? On whose side is time? I continue to see reports that Iran's economy, because of the oil situation, has got 4 days to go. The president suggested as much yesterday. Then I see reports say they have 5 weeks and that they're impervious to pain and that they think the U.S. is going to suffer more. Behnam Ben Talabou is here, Iran director of FDD, who joins us regularly and much appreciated. Behnam, you first. What do you think of this offer by the Iranians? Is there any reason to think the United States should or would accept it?
Great to be with you, Mark. I think Secretary Rubio was right to right size the nature of the Iranian offer and kind of put it back in its place. But there's two or three things I want to flesh out for the audience. Number one, the fact that the Islamic Republic chose to offer us something is proof actually that the blockade is working, that there are actually way too many reports in the major Western mainstream media that say that, we're the ones blockading the Strait of Hormuz or we're blockading a blockade. No, the United States of America through the U.S. Navy is blockading Iran's Persian Gulf and outside Persian Gulf ports. That's designed to put the regime to the choice and increase the economic pain. And the fact that they're reaching out to us to try to at least fix this issue, the most proximate cause of their economic pain, is proof that time is being moved from a tool on the Iranian side of the ledger to the American side of the ledger. So now when the U.S. is finally building leverage during this fog of peace, fog of war, fog of diplomacy that we've had since the 40-day war, my advice to the president and to the Secretary of State is to stay the course. Number two, if President Trump is actually not interested in escalating, if President Trump is actually interested in deconflicting and pushing away from the table, there is no world in which he can do that without getting some sort of an agreement over the Strait of Hormuz. So while the Secretary is correct to say that Iran's tiered system of entry is something that is not worth agreeing to and even discussing, as long as you're not going to be taking down the Islamic Republic of Iran, you will have to agree for them to withdraw naval assets, to take down that Tehran toll booth in Larak Island, and to help actually identify the 10 to 12 mines that they have dropped since the midpoint of the war in this international waterway. So you will need some kind of acceptance from them. So this means that we are going to have to either at least talk or be willing to shoot. And the president right now seems to be comfortable straddling both worlds by engaging in escalating economic warfare.
Hans, do you agree that Iran wouldn't be asking to do this unless they felt under some pressure? Is there another conclusion to draw?
It would be the definition of madness for me to pretend that I have any insight on Iran when Benham is on.
Yeah.
So I'm sure. Look, actions in diplomacy tend to speak larger than words. We still have a very large U.S. contingent up there, which of a variety of military assets, which tends to be a pretty good predictor of future military intentions. But I'm gonna yield to my colleague on whether or not it's actually real. Sorry for weaseling out of that.
No, that's all right. Tim, the interesting question to me continues to be on the American side: will the president use force? Is he taking force off the table in his mind, or is he ready to do it if need be? And on the Iranian side is, how do we make a deal with them when they always lie, they cheat, they stall? So what is the deal really worth? And it seems to me, if they say, okay, you guys take off the blockade, then what happens if what does it mean to take off the blockade? Probably wouldn't move the ships, and the Iranians would just continue to stop ships. And then what do we do? Like, it just seems to me an impossible agreement to get unless it's part of a global agreement. What's your view of whether this is something that should or will be on the table?
No, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, to answer the first part, or to give my thoughts on the first part of your question, I think that the president at least is signaling that he's still willing to use force, right? I think last week he said, and he warned that the United States would bomb any of the ships laying landmines in the strait. So, whether or not that's a bluff or whatnot, he's, I think sometimes for those of us who are not in the room and are not the policy experts, right? Not sometimes, all the time, it is important to take the president at his word when he says things like this. So I think, force is still somewhat in the realm of possibility. In terms of the deal, I kind of want to take the same answer that Hans takes out, because I think what Benham said it sounded right to me. I will add my one thought and thought. I mean, Benham, if you have thoughts, please hop in. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Is this sort of a hollow offer because, like you said, sort of a bait and switch? Because the first part of it is, okay, yeah, let's get the strait opened, and let's assume, like, even, Mark, to your point, right? Yeah, it's not going to immediately fix everything all at once, but let's pretend that it does, right? Let's pretend that we make this agreement, everyone shakes hands, Strait of Hormuz is open, free passage of ships, we don't need to negotiate with Iran, oil prices go back, markets regulate. The next step is then do the Iranians then think that we are coming to the table ready to negotiate a deal that will allow them to have some nuclear weapons? Because if that's what their thing is, we'll open the strait, but then you gotta start from square one about nuclear weapons. That feels like a non-starter.
Hold on, Tim. I want them to react, but I know Hans has to go because, like Chuck Grassley, his metabolism is tied specifically to the greatest deliberative body in the world. Hans, go do your real job. Thank you for joining us. Love having you, sir.
Thanks, guys.
So, Benham, what do you think of the decoupling that Iran seems to be proposing? It just seems to me like completely ridiculous. But what are your thoughts?
Well, listen, they could be trying to get Trump to push away from the table here because a cold peace is something that the Islamic Republic knows how to live with and actually exploit. Remember, these guys are masters of gray zone warfare, and they've been leading with their chin in the cycles of violence after October 7, and particularly after their 2 missile strikes on Israel in April and October 2024. Those were the things that paved the pathway for this crisis. So, perhaps they're trying to get us to decouple, but perhaps they're trying to get Trump to be content with Iran backing down so that Trump can ultimately back off, and that things like maximum pressure or the blockade or even political pressure via the Europeans at the United Nations, for example, won't be forthcoming if they are seen as, quote unquote, doing the right thing in the Strait of Hormuz. The other is, of course, I think they know that an actual nuclear agreement is quite far off. The issues on the nuclear file that separated Iran and America were astronomical pre-start of this war. They have only grown in distance from one another, the two sides, since the 40-day war and the ceasefire period. So perhaps, they're trying to decouple and pivot and try to give the president the illusion of a victory and say that they'll talk about nuclear after, but in reality just hope that everybody settles for a cold peace. Because again, we're making a lot about, the regime's desire to survive and willingness to survive, but right now they have that bunker mentality. And emerging from that bunker is going to mean a heck of a lot to them. That if they can get America to take its foot off of this strategic liability that America has discovered, because it's not strategic leverage, it's strategic liability that the Iranians have shown with respect to the Strait of Hormuz. There's going to be a major gasoline crisis inside of that country. There's going to be a major oil storage crisis inside of that country. There's going to be a major balance of payments crisis inside of that country when it comes to repatriating what's left of energy export earnings. And the regime is trying to avoid this as it sees the shooting war turned off and the economic war stepping up.
Benham, thank you. Very grateful to you. I know you need to go, but we love having you on. We hope you'll come back soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining us now, timely because of the next topic, joining Tim, John Michael Rush of the Daily Mail. Welcome, sir. Thank you for being here.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me again.
Grateful to have you. Here's another situation we're monitoring: the war of words over the war of words. Two of many people who spoke out today about the finger pointing. I can do the Trump position very easily. I can do the Democratic position very easily. I'll summarize them. The Trump position is the media and the Democrats are in cahoots. Do not hold the Democrats accountable for their rhetoric, which has led to demonizing Donald Trump and encouraged attempts to assassinate him. And the Democrats' position is January 6th, etc. And Donald Trump is the last person in the world who is standing to accuse anyone else of using rhetoric that divides America. How'd I do, guys? Pretty good, right? As a summary. Well, here's better. Caroline Leavitt at the White House briefing opened it up. She came out hot, ladies and gentlemen. Here she is, number 7.
And while we are blessed to have a fearless president, we should not live in a country where such constant fear of political violence permeates our society every single day. We can and we should have fierce disagreement in this country. As you all know, we disagree often, myself in this role and all of you in the news media, but those disagreements must remain peaceful. Debating, peaceful protesting, and voting are how we need to settle disagreements, not bullets. Nobody in recent years has faced more bullets and more violence than President Trump. This political violence stems from a systemic demonization of him and his supporters by commentators, yes, by elected members of the Democrat Party and even some in the media. This hateful and constant and violent rhetoric directed at President Trump day after day after day for 11 years has helped to legitimize this violence and bring us to this dark moment. Those who constantly falsely label and slander the president as a fascist, as a threat to democracy, and compare him to Hitler to score political points are fueling this kind of violence. The left-wing cult of hatred against the president and all of those who support him and work for him has gotten multiple people hurt and killed, and it almost did so again this weekend. When you read the manifesto of this shooter, ask yourselves, how different is the rhetoric from this almost assassin than what you read on social media and hear in various forums every single day? The answer, if you're being honest with yourself, is that there is no difference at all. Much of the manifesto of the...
She runs through a bunch of quotes from prominent Democrats saying things about the president that you've heard before. Caroline Levitt speaks for tens of millions. So does our next speaker, the gentleman from New York, Hakeem Jeffries, in rebuttal. Number 11, please.
I know you said you stand by your comments. At the same time, you have been the subject of threats as well. So with respect to this comment about maximum warfare, even if it's about redistricting, why not tone down the language here in this moment?
I think that what's interesting to me, as you pointed out, is that the so-called White House press secretary, who's a disgrace, she's a stone cold liar, had the nerve to stand up there and read talking points being critical of statements all taken out of context that Democrats have made, and didn't have a word to say about anything that MAGA extremists have said or done, including providing aid and comfort to violent insurrectionists here at this Capitol on January 6th who brutally beat police officers. The president then pardoned those violent rioters, many of whom have gone back into communities across the country to reoffend. And as you pointed out, one of whom threatened to kill me. He said, kill the terrorist. Where did that language come from? What Republicans use that language? Why did that pardon MAGA extremists, violent insurrectionists, choose to use the language of terrorism directed at me when he threatened to kill me at an event? And so how can we take them seriously when they raise these partisan attacks and completely ignore the fact that a lot of folks, including Governor Shapiro, his home was attacked by an arsonist when he and his kids and wife were there. And this so-called White House press secretary wants to lecture America and lecture us about civility. Get lost, clean up your own house before you have anything to say to us about the language that we use.
John Michael, thoughts on that back and forth and what you think a normal person would think of it?
Well, thanks for having me, first and foremost. Hopefully you guys can hear me. There's not too much background chatter here at the White House. It's still ongoing. But the rhetoric on both sides has been extraordinarily heated in this last decade since Trump's come to power. Obviously, it's easy to point blame at one party or the other, but I think there's equal offenses that we can see, right? There's a ton of commentary regarding how Trump is close to Adolf Hitler constantly and how he's, invoking a new form of fascism. And on the flip side, Trump, is used to saying some outrageous things himself, like he's going to destroy civilization when referring to Iran. So I think both parties are to blame for where we are currently. And to get back to center, I just think that, you need to absolutely take violence and threats against the sanctity that is human life off the table.
Tim.
A couple of things. One, I really like, and Hakeem Jeffries always does this, I like when he refers to certain members of the Trump administration as so-called, which it's like, I don't know, man, like she's the White House press secretary. That's just the fact. The second thing is that obviously John Michael's right. There is a rhetoric problem on both sides. The rhetoric has gotten heated across the board. I think that in this moment, Mark, you asked, what would a normal person think? I think if you watch, yes, Caroline Levitt, went on the Democrats today. But if you look at what the president said in the immediate aftermath, I was actually shocked by this. He was in a room full of the White House press corps. He had just gotten shot at a dinner for the White House press corps. And at no point, to the best of my recollection, in his speech did he attack the press, right? He sort of, there was a moment, it's one of the, Trump gets very vulnerable after he gets shot at, which I don't say to be glib. I just think, right, it's after Butler at the RNC and the night of the correspondence dinner, sort of the only time we saw like the softer part of him. He doesn't do the bluster. He really does sort of wants everyone to be, not afraid. So I think if you're watching the president, you're watching Hakeem Jeffries, you think maybe, well, this guy's, I don't know why he's taking this opportunity to go right into politics. But the thing that worries me the most is, look, are there things in the Shooter's Manifesto that sound like anti-Trump Democratic talking points? Of course there are. We've reported on some of them. It's just an objective fact, right? He's an insurrectionist. He's a rapist. He's a pedophile. This is like, that's classic. The thing that worries me is I don't think that it's that rhetoric from Democrats, things that people have been saying in the Democratic Party for 11 years at this point, that is getting more people to try to kill the president. I think that otherwise average Democrat voters are just for some reason being more and more drawn to political violence. I think all Americans are, right? So in other words, I don't think that it's necessarily something is happening, and I don't know what that something is. And that's what worries me. I don't think it's as simple as turning down the rhetoric from Washington. I think that would help, but I think there is something going on in the body politic where at this point, just thinking that this president has done bad things in the past, sharing what is a relatively mainstream view in the president's opposition party, people look to violence as a solution in a way when, there was no shortage of fiery rhetoric in the wake of the Lewinsky scandal or Whitewater or throughout the Clinton years. And plenty of Americans hated Bill and Hillary Clinton, and Republicans on Capitol Hill certainly weren't quiet about their disdain for Hillary and Bill Clinton. And I'm sure there were, of course, foiled assassination attempts against President Clinton. I'm sure there are against all presidents, but we didn't have this eruption of political violence in the 90s because Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton did a bad real estate deal in Whitewater. So something else is going on, and I don't know what it is, and that's what scares me.
Well said by both of you.
Jump in here quickly. I was
Yes,
actually at that late night Saturday press briefing, and I was so surprised at how measured the president's tone was. He actually thanked a lot of the reporters in the room for how they reacted to the shooting just an hour, maybe 2 hours right before that. I know that he actually congratulated the White House Correspondents Association President Wei Zhang personally for her professionalism during that. And his tone during that briefing was almost defiant, saying, oh, they came after me again, but look, we're still here. And then he went into why we need a ballroom. But, to have people come after you so many times and then to have kind of that steely disregard for their, failed attempt was very significant, I thought.
Yeah, for a moment at least.
Yes.
I wanted to do one more topic and then to your questions, because I want to make sure we hear from the community at some length today. So please raise your hand if you want to get in. Another situation we're monitoring is Jimmy Kimmel. Of course, this administration previously had said Jimmy Kimmel should be gone. Today, a new voice was added to that effort. Melania Trump, the first lady, number 9, please. In the wake of Jimmy Kimmel making a joke about her husband being dead, she wrote this: Kimmel's hateful and violent rhetoric is intended to divide our country. His monologue about my family isn't comedy. His words are corrosive and deepens the political sickness within America. People like Kimmel shouldn't have the opportunity to enter our homes each evening to spread hate. A coward, Kimmel hides behind ABC because he knows the network will keep running cover to protect him. Enough is enough. It is time for ABC to take a stand. How many times will ABC's leadership enable Kimmel's atrocious behavior at the expense of our community? The president echoed her thoughts on Truth Social. Caroline did it at the briefing. Tim, I don't remember her saying anything quite like this. I'm wondering your thoughts. Is this connected perhaps to Saturday? Why do you think she's done this?
Yeah, I mean, my immediate and actual thought is that, look, I mean, I think Jimmy Kimmel's kind of passe. I don't think he's, I forget even what the last Kimmel joke that got Brendan Carr and everyone angry up in arms about. As I've said on this program and elsewhere, as a journalist, despite my own political leanings, I am in favor of a very broad interpretation of the First Amendment where the government cannot punish people for saying things that they don't like. On the flip side, I think it's perfectly reasonable for people that are the subjects of criticism from these folks to throw fire back, whether it's calling for their removal. And is that abuse of power? I don't know. However, that's a long way by way of saying that the looking like an expectant widow was pretty tough. That is a, I'm not going to go so far again as to say that is a threat against Donald Trump's life, or that joke is going to inspire someone to kill him. But regardless of what happened an hour after he told that joke, that is a pretty stark statement to make. So I think, yes, I think that the tone of Melania Trump's statement matches the severity, I guess, of that joke. But I also think, this is my more harebrained theory, just a week or two ago, we saw Melania Trump come out and give that unscheduled, sort of unbidden press conference about Jeffrey Epstein. My take on that was that maybe the East Wing comm shop was getting a little bit too independent from the West Wing comm shop, and maybe they didn't know what was going on. This feels like a White House press office tweet. So maybe some other stuff is happening in the background related to that press conference or not, where some folks, as they prepare for making their to-do list of who's going to keep an eye on what while Caroline goes on maternity leave, maybe it's someone's job to wrangle the first lady and her team and make sure that they're staying on message.
Brilliant. John Michael.
Yeah, I think to Tim's point, the first lady has seemingly gone on offense on a couple issues here recently, where normally she's been, kind of quiet and reserved. She talked, about Epstein in this jaw-dropping statement from the White House that absolutely nobody was expecting. I remember being here and all the press running around. Did you hear exactly what she just said about Epstein? And my jaw hit the floor because I wasn't expecting her to ever broach the topic. And now coming out against Jimmy Kimmel, this is obviously her rebuttal or, fighting back against his comment regarding, her looking like a glowing expectant widow. But I think that the tide's kind of in her favor. Trump has been the victim of a lot of assassination attempts, more than I think people recall, right? And so we have the two that are famously went down during the 2024 campaign at Butler and then at the golf course in Florida, and then the Iranian plot to kill the president as well, which a lot of people forget about. Just in February, there was a 21-year-old who brought a shotgun into Mar-a-Lago, evaded some security personnel, was shot and killed. The president wasn't there, thankfully, but it's still another attack. And then we have this attack this weekend. So, there's just, I think, 5 in total attempts against the president's life. And so how long would the first lady kind of sit by and not, approach the topic? She seems like now is, it's been too much and she has to address it.
Yeah. And of course, there may be many more we don't know about, although the president will probably blurt them out. Quick word from a sponsor, and then to your questions, please raise your hand if you're here on the two-way platform, want to be part of it. FastGrowingTrees.com is America's largest and most trusted online nursery. I've gotten many things from them, and I recommend you do too if you're looking to add some greenery to your life, a fruit tree, a plant, anything you want. You go on the site, you put in your zip code, and they help you figure out what could grow inside or outside where you live. 20% off everything on the site. Go to fastgrowingtrees.com, use the promo code two-way. They have over 2 million happy customers, and they have an Alive and Thrive guarantee. You're not going to order something and it's going to show up and it's not ready to grow and grow fast. So now that spring is here, it's best time to plant. You can put it in the pot it comes in, or you can replant it outside, whatever you wish to do, and they will help you do it. 1,600 varieties of trees and plants, fruit trees, evergreen trees, shrubs, flowering trees, shade trees, houseplants, and more. They're plant experts, support available via email, chat, or phone, 7 days a week. Advice tailored for you. Go to fastgrowingtrees.com. Use the promo code two-way. Offer is valid for a limited time. Let's grow together. Use two-way to save at fastgrowingtrees.com. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. And here comes Vic. Vic, thank you for being part of two-way. Unmute. Vic's camera just went dark. Here Vic disappeared. Vic was a big bait and switch. But Lucas is going to come on. Lucas, unmute. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind for Tim and for John Michael, and thank you for being here.
Hey, how's it going there, Mark?
Very good, sir. Thank you.
First, before I get to the sad comment, a fun question to ask you. What is your favorite lapel pin to wear to events like the White House Correspondents' Dinner and stuff like that?
I don't own a single lapel pin.
Oh, okay. I love lapel pins, so that's how I see that.
Sorry.
I recently hold on. I'll hop in. I have not gotten a chance to wear this yet, but I found at a flea market earlier this year a Barry Goldwater campaign pin, and it's AuH2O, so it's the chemical symbols for gold and water. And I thought it was so cool. It was only like $5, so I snatched it up. But I have not. Maybe the next time I come on two-way, I'll wear the Goldwater lapel pin. But that'd be amazing.
We'd
love that. Lucas, I'll do better. I've just never been into the pins. I don't know why. I probably should be.
Okay. For me, they're kind of like the workplace, flair.
Yeah.
Conversation starter. It's always
I hear
fun.
you. I've got
I always love
40.
The Game of Thrones.
Yeah, sorry, Game of Thrones. Go ahead. Sorry.
Game of Thrones, Hand of the Kingpin. That's always a fun conversation starter.
I've got 40 Mickey Mouses from Disney, from Japan that I treasure. I'm not sure I'd ever wear them, but they're beautiful. Anyway.
No, my comment I just wanted to say was, it's getting scarier and scarier that my generation, the guy that, tried to do the assassination attempt was 31. All the other people, with the exception, I think the golf course guy, was all roughly around, millennial, or Gen Z generation. And, I don't know why that is. And personally, I don't think it's video games or anything like that. I think it's learning from people around us, that the adults and the people that parent us also don't care and kind of say deranged and crazy things on the internet left and right, with no repercussions. And not that there should be repercussions as far as from speech, but no public shaming of, that's not how we act in the world.
Yeah, it's a really good point. John Michael, you're about that age, so explain your generation.
Well, I think my generation is TikTok first and all things digital and with very short attention span. So whoever can break through and actually, distill their thoughts to our generation, they need to be able to do it in 30 seconds or less. And I guess that's what I'm trying to do with this answer.
Okay. Tim, thoughts on the relatively youth? How old's the guy who killed Charlie? Allegedly
I think he was like maybe in his 22 or something like that, maybe 23 or something, pretty young.
Yeah. Tim.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree that I go back and forth. The internet has to have something to do with it. Social media has to have something to do with it. But on the flip side, I don't think it does. Part of me thinks that there is this really big sense of pessimism that kind of started around 2016. Look, there used to be, in the Obama years, there was always someone spouting off that, Obamacare is going to be the end of the republic. But, that was always sort of confined to one side, right? Whereas when Trump was first elected for a while there, right? It was so crazy that we're now at a point in the second Trump administration, just 6 years later, when there's still a really massive concerted opposition to President Trump, that even the president's critics look back to like 2017 era resistance stuff and think that was insane. Like, that was crazy. Everyone was literally acting like we were on the verge of some sort of like calamitous societal collapse. But I think that stuff has really bled in and shaped the minds of this generation, the latter half of my generation, where maybe it's just the calculus, and the reason we see that all these shooters are young is because they're thinking, well, if someone doesn't do something drastic right now, the future that what future do we have, right? Maybe it's reverse engineering from that. I don't know. I'm not sure. Again, this is why I don't like it.
Yeah, Lucas, I think they lack hope and they lack connection.
True.
And they lack meaning in their lives, and I think we all know the reasons why. It might be more true of them than of people of previous generations, and their parents need to try to imbue them with all three of those. Lucas, thank you. Eileen, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Hello, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am, we hear you great. Thank you again.
I just kind of wanted to piggyback on what Tim was saying and what Lucas was saying regarding, what is going on. And I think one piece of this puzzle is the lack of mental health services turn off my phone, that are not available throughout the country. Either because really good therapists don't take insurance anymore. It's cash payment. It can be a couple hundred dollars an hour per session. There's a lot of communities that don't have any mental health services at all. So I think that's one piece of it. You guys also brought up, the fact that this particular person, along with so many other shooters and whatnot, are all very young. And I just want to point out that the age of onset for any sort of like serious mental health challenge or mental illness is usually late teens up until late 20s. So they all kind of fit within that timeline.
Yeah.
And so that's all I really had to say.
Thank you for that. John Michael, thoughts or questions?
Yeah, kind of like the last thing. It's like I agree that there's not a lot of mental health checks on social media and other tools that people in my generation turn to constantly, right? So you can go from scrolling on TikTok to 15 seconds of outrage to 30 seconds of outrage to a minute of, just diabolical other content. And with people getting that deluge of thought, thinking that it's normalized, that thinking it's okay, it puts them in this echo chamber, right? Like I presume that Tyler Robinson was in a very dark echo chamber when he thought about Charlie Kirk, and I'm sure that this gentleman from the weekend was doing the same. So I think the real question that would kind of distill this conversation further would be, how do we reach these folks where they are, and how do we make sure that they're all just not seeing the same content that's calling for such drastic, extreme measures to be taken against the leaders of our country, right? I don't think that normal people be having these thoughts. I think you get these in your algorithm. If you start going down a rabbit hole, and if you start lingering on the content, it's going to feed you more of it. And so there has to be better safeguards around, these kind of veiled threats to violence or, outspoken threats to make sure that people of my generation aren't just spending all day consuming violent, terrible rhetoric that is then informing their actions.
Yes, and I would add to that, imagine what that's doing to someone who's very vulnerable, emotionally, mentally, the more vulnerable person.
Tim.
I mean, I think that's right. The only thing I would push back on or sort of, I guess, raise a flag on is that I do think that there's still something very significant. There's a significant political driver here, right? There's something about our political culture. Because the people who used to try to assassinate presidents were I'm not saying that the people who have done it now, I'm not saying that the guy who tried to shoot up the correspondence dinner was not mentally ill, right? On some level, you have to be a little bit mentally ill to try to kill a president, try to kill anybody. This guy, Tyler Robinson, the people from Butler and from Mar-a-Lago, right? They release these manifestos where it's like, I have to kill Donald Trump because he's an insurrectionist and he's a threat to the Constitution, right? This is a far cry from, I need to kill Ronald Reagan because I'm in love with Jodie Foster, or I need to kill James Garfield because I deserve a job in the White House, right? Like there is something going on that's it's mental illness, yes, but there is a logic to it, right? There is I need to do X to prevent Y, and I am going to be the one to do it. It's these people are it's evil and it's crazy, yes, but it is very much grounded in a specific political reality. Whereas traditionally, right, the intervening, the post John Wilkes Booth, pre Donald Trump presidential assassins were all sort of it was in their own head, right? Their reasons were entirely divorced from reality. So obviously, look, increased mental health services can't hurt the problem, but I think that there is something going on here that simple attending to the mental health of young men, especially in this generation, won't solve on its own.
Ellen, thank you. Ryan, we're up against the clock. If you could be brief, that'd be great. Thank you for being here.
I understand, and thank you for calling on me on such short time frame. What really concerns me is not just the political violence, but the economic violence that we've been experiencing. I mean, we got Luigi Mangione, the recent fire at the Ontario paper plant. There's also others I could mention, but just want commentary on that. I mean, it's really concerning to me, not just political, but economic.
Yeah, Tim.
So look, I'm going to keep sounding like a broken record, but something is going on, right? And something is going on in the country. And, I don't know, the last time we saw something like this was the late 60s, early 70s. And, there were a string of successful assassinations before all of that broke. And then, the economy crashed and there was a lot of political violence, the Weather Underground. A lot of post offices had to get blown up, and then we had to have a major political sea change in Washington. I'm not a historian. I'm sure there have been times when big periods of, economic and political violence have been resolved without a succession of pretty big calamities. None of them are coming to mind. So if you're a historian in the comments and wants me to sleep better tonight, please hop in and tell me about a 20-year period of heightened violent rhetoric that ended just sort of because everyone woke up and decided to chill out one day.
Yeah, John Michael.
Well, the economic kind of impact of this, I think, is really interesting. But I will also go back to kind of an old answer where I think, there's probably echo chambers where they are, Luigi Mangione, for example, are probably hearing all day in every way that, these giant insurance corporations are the enemy of the people. And then one day he wanted to be the hero and act on it. Now, obviously, that's a totally delusioned view of the world and what should be done. However, whatever algorithm or whatever folks he was talking to, or, his college classmates that he was speaking to at the time clearly affirmed those ideas, and he decided he wanted to be a hero. Now, we all know that's not the way to do it, but to vulnerable people, it seems like this is a very susceptible vector of attack.
Ryan, thank you. Tomorrow, or tonight rather, Lifelong with Ethan Suplee, 7 o'clock tonight. His guest Rodney Lambert, transformation coach. Join them at 7 o'clock here on Two Way to learn more about how to be part of a community dedicated to living a healthy life. Lifelong with Ethan at 7 o'clock tonight. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, Trish McLaughlin and Haima Moore join me on the morning meeting. This program will be here at the regular time tomorrow, 5 to 6. And then at 6, the debut of our partnership with Harris X, one of the best pollsters in America, Capital Intel, a first ever interactive polling special report. Mark Penn and I will debut a new Harris X national poll. And then you'll be able to ask questions about it of one of the best pollsters in America. You can ask about the poll results. You can ask how it compares to other polls. You can ask about the methodology, anything you want. An opportunity to really understand polling, to not just read it yourself and try to figure it out, or to say it's fake news, but to understand it and get answers. So join us tomorrow, regular time, 5 to 6. And then at 6 o'clock, the debut of Capital Intel, first ever interactive polling special. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, John. Thank you to John Michael. Thank you to our other guests. I'll see you at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Have a good evening, everybody.